Alright, so once it loads here, there we go. Moving along, I would like to discuss a topic that I kind of came across a few times in my research, and I thought, well, if it's come up a few times, it's worth going over. And that is the difference between oral schools and mainstreaming. So we'll start with what they have in common, which is that star that's on the top right over here. And that is that they provide schooling to deaf and hard of hearing students, and they use assisted listening devices to aid those students. Well, I'm sure there's a little bit more that they have in common. Those are the two that I found most prevalent to this topic. Moving over to the mainstream circle, mainstreaming supports the use of ASL and manual language. It uses accommodations such as interpreters, note takers, things that have to do with ASL, or just whatever feels most comfortable for the student. This also usually takes place in public schools or local schools with the general public youth. This is not a specialized school. This is just your average public school with hearing youth and hopefully disabled youth integrated as well. Moving over to the oral teaching side, oral teaching does not allow the use of ASL. They're very strict about that. Something that stuck with me in my previous research was that in oral schools back in the day, they would have students sit on their hands because they were so adamant against using any type of manual communication that they just didn't want the kids to be tempted, and they just had them sit on their hands. And I thought that was just rather absurd. They also let children try to utilize their hearing with the help of cochlear implants and hearing aids usually, but still utilizing their hearing, which is what their quote-unquote disability involves, which is a little bit silly in my opinion, but we all have our own. Oral teaching often takes place in a specialized school with primarily deaf and hard of hearing youth. This is not a general public education setting. This is specifically for oral teaching. They have methods that are used specifically only in oral teaching. This is not something that is universal for hearing students to attend as well. Now, something I wanted to just kind of bring to everybody's attention is that there is an oral school that is active today, and that is in Tennessee. That is the Memphis Oral School for the Deaf, and they have a website that I was going on to. I was just kind of browsing, and I was on their educational philosophies page, and they had this quote that I brought up here, and that is as follows. It says, "As its name implies, the Memphis Oral School for the Deaf utilizes oral, listening, and spoken language instructional methods for the purpose of developing speech and language skills. No sign language is used. The goal for every student at MOSD is to learn to listen and talk." And again, that's from the Memphis Oral School for the Deaf website. Now, the reason I included that is because I just found it interesting that they, in this day and age, are so heavily against sign language that in their professional excerpt about their teaching methods, they felt the need to use capitalized letters for the entire sentence, that no sign language is used. And to me, that's just really shows the hold against ASL that oral teaching has.